Morning.
Very nice to have a nice sunny morning for this splendid occasion.
Don't be long, it's going to rain.
On the occasion of the unveiling of a plaque in honour of the residence which our learned friend and actor, Mr. Kenneth Griffith, used to occupy during his younger days when he was living in Tenby. Since then he has become quite a prominent and eminent citizen in the film world, and he has strong links with Tenby, returning as often as he can, and we always look forward to seeing him. So I would like to take this opportunity of unveiling the plaque which has been in honour of his memory.
No. He wasn't wearing there.
Did you ever see the film with Gary Cooper, Mr. Deeds Goes to Washington? And they were sending him off to Washington, they couldn't find him, and they found him in the band playing, for he's a jolly good fellow. That's correct, isn't it, Mr. Berry? More like, yes. Is someone supposed to say something?
We think that the best someone to say something at this moment would be you.
However, well, friends, I'm in a state of shock. That's the simple truth. I was born in the back here because at one time this house and the back part, which is another house now, was one house. And the experience is so extraordinary that next door here lived P.C. Griffith, Police Constable Griffith, and his son was Dennis Griffiths with an S. And of course we were very close friends. And I was traveling on a troop ship. It was the Queen Mary, as a matter of fact, only the best sort of troop ships. And I was on F deck, which is the very bottom of it, because I was a casualty. And Dennis Griffiths, who was my chum there, my age, learnt that I was on the ship. How he learnt it, I don't know. But with all due respect to your brother, he was very nervous on that ship in the middle of the Atlantic. Very nervous indeed. But he came down to see me. And I was very ill. I was getting on for 6 stone in weight. I was on the danger list. But Dennis, I remember vividly, on the F deck, and all we had was a tannoy with a direct link with the bridge, and the captain was saying, you are now in the danger area, you now have your... Of course, we couldn't move. There was no way of us getting off that ship if the German submarines had had a go at it. You are now in the danger area. Have your life belts handy. Have your life belts handy. It was packed with American troops, thousands of American soldiers up above. And Dennis was very nervous, but he was brave enough, and he didn't like being in the bottom of this ship where I had to live. And he was saying, wouldn't like to be down your boat. Oh, he said, I can't quote his language precisely, but he said, yeah, I tell you what, I'm bloody sleeping, I'm up on the deck. And he was saying this. He said, if anything happens to this lot, he said, I'm going to be the first off. In the end, patients around, other poor airmen were saying, look, tell him not to come. If not. And one day, it took 9 days to cross the Atlantic because they were avoiding the U-boat packs. And even then in the war, the Queen Mary produced a newspaper, Queen Mary News. And Dennis, who lived there, laid the Queen Mary News on my chest. And after a while, in one of these pained silences, I looked at it, and I focused on the date, Queen Mary News, and it said October the 12th, 1943. And I said, Dennis, it's my birthday. And then I said, Dennis, I'm 21 today. So the one person who was present at my 21st, that's his young brother there. And on that day, Germans who had been bombing Pembroke Dock, one German aircraft fighting to get back to Germany, dropped its load of bombs across the South Beach here. And they all hit the beach except one, which hit Mrs. Thomas the Pop's house and killed her. She was killed just there. But it blew up the whole back of this house. So on my birthday, the room that I was born in was destroyed by a German bomb. And if you have any doubts about that, the facts are up in the museum, October the 12th, there it is. I learned that later, of course. My great memory is of my grandparents who lived here. And I always feel it's a slight reflection on my grandmother when I say how wonderful man my grandfather was. He was a man of... He never proselytized, he never preached, he never laid a finger on me. He gave me so much love. From the age of 6 months, I was with them, those two Victorians and no one else. I've got a feeling sometimes I don't agree with Maggie Thatcher about many things, but when she said return to Victorian values, she was bloody well right. And my grandparents were the personification of that. My grandfather was a very brave man, and a man of wonderful principles. I never had the chance, perhaps now fully, to say thank you. Well, I thank them at this moment. And life is ridiculous. You know, it really is. This strange journey we go through is utterly ridiculous. We have, if we can recognize whatever talent we have and do our best with it, and we have half a dozen friends through life who are in a position to help you, and one or two of them are present now. John Hebbing, one of them. There are, because I always forget the one I should remember. Another one over there who's just taken over my life, my colleague Michael Pearce. We've been together for 24 years, making films together. I've been a great worry to him, and he's been a great worry to me. But I'm very glad to have him. I hope he's glad to have me. Anyway, my grandparents. In that corner was a verbena bush, which wonderful aroma, and that haunted me, the smell of that verbena, those verbena leaves. The other memory I have, which I've got to do, was at the age of 4, swinging on this gate, when my grandfather said, you shouldn't do that. And I've never forgotten, so perhaps it's just as well I'm not able to swing on it now, because he told me not to. No. And my friend here, I'm surrounded by very old friends, worked with my grandfather. And I remember him very, very clearly. He was a very dashing young Tenby man. And I remember the flat cap he wore. I was in awe because it was at such a jaunty angle, wasn't it? Yeah. And, you know, about my grandfather, I've just got to tell you this, because the plaque should be, in my mind, be for my grandfather, not me. My grandfather was a stonemason. He became a builder of 1 or 2 houses at a time, and the Depression came and he went bankrupt. My grandmother immediately went blind. I don't mean she went blind, the shop, that they couldn't pay their bills. She wore a black thing over her eyes, not just dark glasses, but a black shade. And it was a terrible time. They hid it from me as well as they could, but I knew we had to leave the house. We moved out to Penally, just me and the two old people. And my grandfather was given a job by the town council. They didn't pay him well enough, and I once told them off about that, and they've never really forgiven me.
I forgive you now.
Were you present? When I told them how they treated my grandfather, and I finished up with words I should not have spoken and would not have spoken, but it was the Tenby Mafia, it was the Round Table, it was the Masons, and I finished up by saying, I'm sure you'll all agree with me. They were all, of course, contemporaries of mine who'd inherited their father's hotels. I'm sure you'll all agree with me that the best people in Tenby are not here tonight. There was deathly silence, except for one man at the back who went berserk. Bravo! And he was a visiting Irishman. It's true. But I never thought I'd be invited officially back to Tenby after that. However, I'm on my way now, and I wouldn't have said it today. It was one below the belt. But my grandfather was given this job of, they had to extend the sewage pipes. Correct, isn't it? Out in, they had to enlarge them under the land, and then extend them out into Caldy Bay. And my grandfather was appointed clerk of works. And he wore a good tweed suit and tie and was very respectable again. Because the greatest moment of shame in my life was when I was at the grammar school, and at lunch hour I was with some friends and we turned a corner and there was my grandfather on his knees mending the pavements. And I was ashamed of it. I didn't want it. Of course, I went and spoke to him.
Yeah.
And he smiled at me, but such is the appalling weakness of us human beings that I had that feeling. Well, he was given this respectable job. And it went on for 2 years or so, didn't it? It went on for a long time, extending the pipes. And there was an engineering firm here, and the chief engineer was a dashing man. He was very nice to me, and I saw him as my father, whom I very rarely saw, once every 5 years maybe. And he was he dived, and he was nice to me, and there was my grandfather, part of the team. And they completed their jobs. There were divers out there, went out into Caldy Bay building. They were building the pipes under the sea. And the day came when it was completed, the job. And my grandfather was called to the town hall as the clerk of works to sign that the work was completed properly. And he looked at it and said, but I'm sorry, I can't sign. And they said, but you've got to. We can't pay the engineering firm. We can't complete the contract unless you, on our behalf, sign that the work... My grandfather said, I can sign for the work on the land. I've seen that, 100%. But I haven't seen it under the sea. And they said, well, don't be ridiculous, Mr. Griffith. Griffiths, with an S, because he had an S, I haven't. There's a story. Anyway, they said, but you've got to sign. We take it for granted. He said, I can't sign, and I won't sign. And then he said, and he couldn't swim. I mean, he'd never been in the sea. I don't recall him. He came from Stepaside. I've never seen him paddle. But he said, now, if you will allow me, and the engineers will allow me, and the divers will allow me, put me under the sea. And they couldn't believe it. He was 50-odd. But he got his way. I was in the boat. This is the man. I was in the boat out in Caldy Bay with the divers, with the engineers, and I saw my old grandfather put into a diving suit. I saw the helmet screwed onto his head. I remember them saying to him, these big knives, Mr. Griffiths, there are large conger eels round the pipes and they can bite through. You'll have 2 divers with you to protect you. And I saw him lowered under the sea. And I don't know how long it was afterwards, a long time. I saw him pulled up. I sat there looking at my grandfather. I was 7 years old. And I saw the helmet unscrewed, and he was smiling, and he said, "I'll sign, it's fine." Now that's a hero. That is a hero. I have a friend here, I'm sorry to say, admires the Duke of Wellington. My grandfather was 10 times braver than the bloody Duke of Wellington. And Princess. So I think that's what I feel this morning. I felt very shaky earlier because you're faced with reality at a time like this. And of course, you know, one of the infuriating thing about William Shakespeare is that whatever you think, whatever you try and find words for, he said it so much better. And I thought, I once played Hamlet for the BBC. I played the Prince. And the Prince Hamlet has to say, I paraphrase in case there's a Shakespearean scholar present, and my daughter Eva over there. He said, someone had said, "Give him his desserts." And young Hamlet said, "Give any human being his desserts, and who amongst us will escape a whipping?" Whipping. If I got my desserts, Hamlet said, you can't do that. I should be whipped this morning for my errors in life, not this. But I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
I would feel very humble in this presence if it wasn't for the fact that I come from Narberth. Oh, I know, use the platforms. And when I can't be heard in a crowd this size, I'll give up the business. I just want to say once again to you, Ken, how well this is deserved. To you, Lady Asheville, thank you very much this morning for allowing us to be here in front of your lovely home that is now beautifully kept. You do a lovely snow sem. You also make a very nice cup of coffee, some of us have discovered. We're very grateful to you for your allowing us to do this and for your welcome, your very kind welcome this morning on one of your occasional visits to this country. You got a place in France. To you, Mr. Mayor, you this year have worked so tremendously hard in maintaining the style and standard of this lovely, lovely resort and town. Thank you very much for your presence and for your helping us. But of Ken, I know that I can say that Kipling could have had him in mind all that while ago when he said, if you can cope with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can walk with kings and yet not lose the common touch, that is our Ken Griffith. Now, does your director want to do anything before we dissolve?
He wants you all to do it once more? Shall we do it once more?
Mr. Pierce, would you like to come and be photographed? That'll be a novelty, get you on the right side of the camera.
As long as he doesn't speak.
I won't speak.
Why does he say as long as you don't speak?
He might tell the truth. Yeah, I stand on the pavement, you down there, otherwise I look like a dwarf. Not a rival. Yes. That's all. Could we have one with my 4 children and us as well? My 4 children You're at present. There's one in Amsterdam today, and he's editing a film of mine.
That's right. Well, David,
Come on,
David.
Huey, David, and Polly. Put your sketch on, Polly.
Snaps for happy family.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all very much. Come and help them.
Come and sit down.
He was going to get our other colleague. Yes. It's in the Tenby Museum, the date. Not because of me, but because of the bomb.
Yeah. Where did Mrs. Thomas live then?
She lived in the parade that I'm pointing at.
Yes.
The corner house.
Yeah.
sake, beware, take care, and always prepare to stop, look, and listen when you get up in the morning. Don't you dare forget a warning when you play.